chances, going all to different places, different planets. Watch your aura pass me by.
Hey beautiful, welcome into Dr. Sarah's Café. I wanted to make this video reflective of Jupiter and Gemini, so I've packed it full of information and insights that you can use to explore the massive potential of this transit. So please use the timestamps below to skip ahead to the chapters that interest you the most. I'm going to start out with some fun facts and then delve into the astrology with a focus on practical ways you can use this transit to improve and enhance your everyday life and your overall well-being. And then I'm going to close this out with a full collective tarot reading. So let's go. Now, the thing about Jupiter is that it is big. It is massive. I want to share some facts about Jupiter according to NASA that if you're a nerd like me, you might find quite interesting. So one, Jupiter is twice as massive as all other planets combined. That's right, twice as massive as all the other planets in our solar system combined, okay? It is a big boy, all right? Also, Jupiter's moon, Europa, is one of the likeliest places for life elsewhere in the solar system. And I love this fact about Jupiter. I feel like that detail in and of itself speaks to the life-giving quality that Jupiter has, the idea of blessings and abundance, the fact that one of its moons is one of the more likely places that life can exist elsewhere in our solar system. I think is really on brand for Jupiter as a planet. One interesting fact that I found as I was looking at this NASA website about Jupiter is that it actually rotates faster than Earth. So it rotates about every 10 hours. Every 10 Earth hours, that is, but it orbits much slower than Earth. So while it takes 10 hours for Jupiter to turn around on its axis, it takes 12 years for Jupiter to make its way around the sun, 12 Earth years. And the fun thing about Jupiter is that it has rings, but these rings are a little bit elusive and they're really hard to see unless they're backlit by the sun itself. So it just adds to the mystique and the mystery and the magic and the razzle dazzle of Jupiter as a planet. And then also Jupiter is called the gas giant. It's mainly made of hydrogen and helium, and so it doesn't have a solid surface. So when we think about Jupiter being the planet of expansion, the planet of abundance in astrology, the fact that it's made out of gas, which is known for its property of expansion and bigness, then again, it's just really on brand for this really special planet. Now we can get into the astrology of Jupiter. Jupiter retrograde will begin in Gemini on October 9th, 2024. Now this may be the day after or the day before, depending on your time zone. I'm doing this based on Central Standard Time in the United States. And it will be retrograde for about 4 months until February 4th of 2025. And so it'd be really interesting if you come back to this video at the beginning of February to see how your Jupiter retrograde transit has gone overall. Now, retrograde energy means that a planet is retracing or recovering ground that it has already covered. And so for this transit, it will recover 21 to 11 degrees of Gemini. So it will station at 21 degrees and it will retrace its steps all the way back to 11 degrees of Gemini. Now, in terms of dates on the calendar, that would be July 15th all the way up to October 8th. So you can review that period of time from July 15th to October 8th of 2024 to get some insights or clues or hints as to what you might be revisiting, where you might be able to have second chances or second opportunities to uncover and unearth the blessings and gifts of Jupiter. There might have been something that didn't pan out to the best of its ability during that time period. And so with Jupiter going back in that direction, you might be able to recover some lost treasure or some lost items. Maybe like when you're playing the video game and you pass up a treasure chest and you can go back, you retrace your steps in the video game, you collect the treasure, you collect the bonus, and then you proceed to move forward with your mission, with your quest. So that's really the vibe that I'm primarily getting with Jupiter retrograde, specifically in Gemini. The nuggets or the treasures, the wisdom, the bonus points might have a lot to do with information or facts or conversations that we've had during that time period that need to be revisited. Or maybe we dropped some insight or important information and details and we go back to collect them to flesh out a larger philosophy or the full story or picture of something that we can use to move forward towards our greater vision, our specific goal that we have in that area of our life. The astrology of Jupiter and Gemini reminds me of a couple of analogies. The first is that kid in a candy store energy, right? So Jupiter is the planet of blessings and abundance, and so it's like the candy, the treats, the presents. But Gemini is also a sign associated with childhood or children and that childlike sense of play and fun. And so when we combine those two energies, it's like the kid in the candy store. Now that might sound great, but after a while it can become overwhelming, and children run the risk of getting sick or spending too much money if they get carried away with this energy. Jupiter in Gemini also reminds me astrologically of institutions of higher learning, so colleges and universities. Jupiter is often the planet of wisdom and higher learning and larger philosophies. And that is beautiful in and of itself. But again, when it goes to an extreme or gets carried away with itself, it can start to become dogmatic and even oppressive by trying to force or push its own beliefs and philosophies onto other people and other situations. So I have a list of some keywords that I'm going to put on the screen here for you to take a screenshot or to jot down notes so that I don't have to read through the entire list. And even though it's already an expansive list, it still does not cover every specific thing that is associated with the planet of Jupiter. Some things of note is that Jupiter rules Thursday. So Thursday is Jupiter's day, which is why I wanted to make sure this video was published on a Thursday, of course. Now, aside from that longer list, I have pulled out some specifics related to Jupiter in Gemini that I want to highlight here as we discuss this Jupiter retrograde transit. Jupiter in Gemini, whether it's retrograde or going forward, has a lot to do with publishing, writing, and travel. Those are the areas I think where Jupiter and Gemini energy really mesh well. Jupiter is known to be debilitated or in fall in Gemini because it's opposite of one of its home signs, which is Sagittarius. I'll get to that more in a second. But where Gemini and Jupiter really mesh well and they do work well together is in the realm of writing, travel, and publishing. Both of those energies are well suited to those activities. Jupiter and Gemini is also abundant communication and information. And so I think that Jupiter and Gemini also overlap in this way. So Gemini loves communication and it loves lots of chattiness, lots of information, lots of insight. And Jupiter likes abundance, right? And so the one thing that Jupiter can be abundant in when it's in Gemini is in communication. And this also means expansive conversations of thoughts and ideas. And what I mean by expansive is not just the quantity or like how much information or how much talking you're doing, but it's the philosophical bent or the more spiritual bent, right? And so it's conversations and information that expands your mind. And also Jupiter and Gemini is really good for storytelling. Gemini energy is really good at weaving narratives, telling stories. They like to sometimes gossip. They like to sometimes get the story and tell the story. And, depending on the vibration of that Gemini energy, it doesn't always matter if that story is true or not, which is where Jupiter comes in, because Jupiter is a planet that deals with truth and that wants to know the greater truth. Gemini just wants the information, the facts, the data, but Jupiter wants to take that and weave a narrative around it, weave a story about it, right? So what's the truth that comes out based on these facts, based on this data? What am I going to believe? What is my philosophy or my belief system going to be based on these facts and this information? And so Jupiter and Gemini really highlight or underscore for us the tension between knowledge versus wisdom, right? And so Gemini energy gives us all the information, all the knowledge, but it's Jupiter energy and its association with Sagittarius that wants to leverage that knowledge in service to wisdom, in service to deeper insight, okay? Now that speaks to Jupiter and Gemini energy overall, but when Jupiter goes retrograde in Gemini, there are a few specifics to Jupiter retrograding in Gemini that I think will be helpful for you in maximizing the potential of this transit specifically over the next 4 months. And one, when Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini, we can think of using that writing energy to do more journaling, more introspective writing. We might also review old writings that we've done or revise specific writing projects that we've already had. This could also be rereading books that we've read or that we've encountered and going back and seeing if we get new insights or new nuggets of wisdom from things that we've already read in the past. Retrograde Gemini, retrograde Jupiter in Gemini, and that storytelling aspect. I'm also getting the vibe of prequels. So maybe we have a story that we've come to understand or come to like, or that we've been writing ourselves, and we kind of start to explore the prequel to that, right? So what's underlying that story? What's the backstory to this story? Also, sequels. So when Jupiter stations direct in February, we might see a sequel to a story that had been playing out over the past several months, okay? And then that area of facts versus truth, information versus story, and belief and philosophy. With Jupiter retrograding in Gemini, I think we're going to be able to access or leverage or tap into or express alternative narratives, alternative stories. And so we've been exposed to a particular belief or narrative with Jupiter going direct, and the retrograde motion might help us to see an alternative perspective, an alternative story. And so we can also think of this in terms of the storytelling aspect as well, as telling the story from a different point of view, telling the story from the point of view of another character, or telling the story from the point of view of the antagonist, right? And so it gives us an opportunity to update our beliefs, to update or reconsider our philosophy on something as we go back and pick up information that we might have missed the first time around. We go back, we revisit a conversation that we had, and we start to notice details that we didn't notice the first time around. And that can completely shift our understanding and the insight that we have about what was actually communicated or what wasn't communicated, right? And for our own communication, it can also help us go back to that conversation and add clarity or to clarify what we really intended to communicate that maybe we didn't fully or clearly do the first time around. So Jupiter, as it goes retrograde in Gemini, it's going to make some really key aspects that I want to share and cover here as well. Specifically, the opposition to Mercury in Sagittarius. 3 times during its 4-month retrograde period, Jupiter is going to exactly oppose Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, I mentioned that Gemini and Sagittarius are completely opposite each other on the zodiac wheel. So Gemini rules one house and Sagittarius rules the exact house opposite of that. And so not just are they opposing each other, but Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Mercury rules Gemini, okay? So this means that they will be in a mutual reception. A mutual reception in astrology means that they are in each other's home signs, okay? So they're opposing each other, they're standing directly across the sky from each other, and they're in each other's houses. So Mercury is in Jupiter's house, while Jupiter is in Mercury's house. And it reminds me almost of that Wife Swap TV show, although it was very problematic in a lot of ways. Like, I'm not necessarily recommending the show, but it just reminds me of the kind of energy that we might see with this opposition in a mutual reception, right? But the example I really want to use for a mutual reception is the Disney movie Freaky Friday. So I'm really seeing this Jupiter-Mercury opposition with each of them being in the other planet's home sign, kind of like the Freaky Friday movie, where the young daughter gets to experience life through her mother's eyes, and the mother gets to experience life through her daughter's eyes, right? They get to inhabit each other's experiences and walk in each other's shoes. And so I'm really seeing Jupiter as being able to walk a mile in Mercury's shoes, and vice versa, Mercury being able to walk a mile in Jupiter's shoes. And they come out of this mutual reception, they come out of these oppositions, really just having a deeper appreciation for the story and the experience and the truth of each of the opposite energies. So even though it's an opposition, I think it's ultimately creating dynamic tension that ultimately leads to greater harmony, understanding in the end. And so on November 18th, December 4th and December 26th. You want to mark those dates on your calendar or in your journal and really see what deeper insights and deeper knowing you might get from this mutual reception opposition between Mercury and Sagittarius. And so if I can give you another analogy just to explain why this feels like a significant transit or a significant aspect to me, is that if you realize that Gemini is like seeing the trees, Sagittarius is like seeing the forest. So if you've ever heard that saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, I think this is going to help both of these areas of our lives see from the other side or see from the other perspective. So while Gemini is focused on the trees, Jupiter is going to help it understand the forest. And while Sagittarius is focused on the forest, Mercury is going to help it understand the trees and the individual parts that make up the forest. So it's like Jupiter is passing through the home of Mercury, and so it has a better understanding of Mercury. And Mercury is passing through the home of Jupiter, and so it has a better understanding of Jupiter. And I feel like these oppositions between the two are going to be an important moment where we see the other side of the story very clearly, and we can have, or we can choose to cultivate greater wisdom and insight and clarity around what the other perspective is, right? And that ultimately helps us to expand our own beliefs, to expand and upgrade, up-level our own philosophy and understanding and insight and wisdom into our own lives, as well as the insight and wonders of the world itself. And that really presents a valuable blessing or opportunity that we can leverage or take advantage of during this time. And just FYI, the reason Mercury and Jupiter oppose each other 3 times is because Mercury is also going to be retrograding. So while Jupiter is retrograding, Mercury is also going to have a retrograde period in the sign of Sagittarius. And so it's going to cross that same opposition point to Jupiter 3 times. Again, using the dates that I provided here on the screen, November 18th, December 4th, and December 26th. So in addition to the oppositions between Jupiter and Mercury, they are also going to trine each other. And in fact, the retrograde period is going to be bookended by a trine to Mercury. So it's going to start off with a trine to Mercury in the sign of Libra on October 8th, and then it's going to end with a trine to Mercury in the sign of Aquarius on February 3rd. And now this is really good because these trines are happening in other air signs. And so air sign energy gets along with other air sign energy pretty well. And so I'm seeing this as just enhancing and amplifying the amount of understanding and knowledge that we're going to have in these various areas of our life. So you want to look at where Gemini, Sagittarius, Libra, and Aquarius are in your specific birth chart. And so again, because both planets are going to be retrograding at the same time, and because they're going to be in a mutual reception where they're in each other's home sign respectively, and because they bookend this 4-month period with a trine to each other, I think Jupiter and Mercury are going to be working really, really closely over the next 4 months. And I think they're going to be trying to enhance our wisdom, trying to enhance our philosophy, our understanding, our knowledge, our ability to communicate, something that's really important to us in our life at this time. Now, again, come back to this video in 4 months and let me know if that actually pans out for you, and if so, exactly how. Now, before we transition into the full collective tarot reading, I want to share some tarot cards that are inherently associated with Jupiter, Gemini, as well as Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. Now, the tarot card that represents Jupiter alone is the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is related to fate and destiny, but it's also related to how our choices interact with our fated moments in our lives, and how that series of choices, or that domino effect of choices, can shift or alter our destiny and the timelines that we're on. And so because of this association with the Wheel of Fortune, I'm also doubling down on the idea of second chances, second opportunities, because Jupiter in this Wheel of Fortune is like, as luck would have it, I'm getting another opportunity, another chance. And based on the choice I make this time, I could alter a destiny point for myself. Now, another reason why I'm focusing on second chance energy with this Jupiter retrograde in Gemini is because of its association with the Lover's card. The Lover's card traditionally means choice, That's right, making a choice. And so I think we're going to see maybe where we haven't made the best choice in the past, or we had limited information or misinformation that prevented us from making the best choice. And so with this Jupiter retrograde energy, we're not only going back to collect new information and new data, but we might also be presented with a second opportunity or a second chance to make a new choice, to make a new decision that changes the course of some area or aspect of our lives. And there's a card that represents Jupiter in the sign of Gemini specifically. It is the Eight of Swords. And you can see from this depiction that I have up here on the screen that it doesn't really look like the most pleasant experience. And to be fair, the shadow aspect of Jupiter and Gemini can be being overwhelmed by too many options, being overwhelmed by too many choices, too much information, and not being able to do much with it. The Eight of Swords kind of reminds us of the mental clutter that can happen when we have Jupiter and Gemini energy running away with itself, okay? However, this card also reminds us that we sometimes miss opportunities and miss chances because of our mindset, because of our state of mind, because of our inability to see that we really do have options. And so I think that's going to be a real blessing and benefit of Jupiter retrograde, is where we've missed opportunities because of our own limited mindset or because of our own lack mentality, our own low self-esteem, or just coming from a disempowered place, or again, just being misinformed or not having the full facts or the full story. We're going to get to see, oh, I missed this opportunity before because I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't seeing the situation fully and clearly. And now I can recognize where I have power, where I have the opportunity to break out of some rut or to step into a greater level or chapter for myself. This Eight of Swords energy also speaks to when we are stuck in a disempowered narrative, when the story that we tell ourselves is one that limits our power or reduces our brightness and our gifts and talents. And so again, retrograding in Gemini, we have a chance to observe other facts, observe alternative stories, alternative narratives about who we are, alternative stories and new information and insights about us and our real power to step forward and break free from things that have held us back in the past. All right, so for the tarot reading, I'm going to start with an oracle card, actually, using the Energy of the Seven Oracles deck. I'm going to pull one for our collective Jupiter retrograde and Gemini experience, okay? And then I will pull from a tarot deck to elaborate on whatever the message is from the oracle card. Okay, that's too many. Let's get a collective message for Jupiter retrograde and Gemini, October 9th through February 4th. What's the collective message for Jupiter retrograding in Gemini, October 9th, 2024 through February 4th, 2025. All right. We have beautiful uncaging. Number 14, beautiful uncaging. So I'll start with reading from the guidebook directly, but I also have some intuitive hits that I'll share as well. Okay, from the guidebook, beautiful uncaging, number 14. Key concepts: the prison of guilt, a need for self-inventory, rigorous honesty, accountability, and making amends. So already reading these key concepts, I'm thinking of self-inventory and rigorous honesty, going back to what I was sharing about Jupiter retrograde and Gemini being an excellent time to journal, being an excellent time to do an audit of our beliefs, the stories that we tell ourselves, seeing where we might have had misinformation or not enough information, and maybe needing to recalibrate the stories and the ideas and philosophies that we've had around a certain situation. And then continuing, it says, at this time, you're being called to assess where guilt is playing a part in your life. Recognize how it's affecting you and others, and address it so you can release yourself from its grip. Guilt is a powerful emotional state capable of transforming difficult situations. It keeps you accountable for your actions when you've done something that causes harm. However, it can also feed a self-sabotaging cycle that fosters codependency and a distorted sense of personal power. Self-blame can lead to behaviors that perpetuate low self-worth. Have you done or said something for which you need to make amends? Have you disregarded a boundary or broken a promise? Guilt can make you aware of potential ways you have given injury and show you how to redress the transgression. When you sincerely admit you are wrong and begin the process to fix it, this is an act of accountability, responsibility, and liberation. Take a moment now to consider when you have harmed others or yourself. This knowledge will free you from the story you tell about it so you're able to connect with truthful remorse. Now is the time for rigorous honesty as you take self-inventory with a neutral state of mind. A good question to ask yourself now is why the guilt is here. You might be taking on a burden that is not even yours to carry. Pay attention, take action, and uncage yourself from the prison of your own making. This is so exactly Eight of Swords energy. This is that Eight of Swords, Jupiter and Gemini energy that's represented by that tarot card. And when the author of this deck says, this knowledge will free you from the story you tell about it, so you're able to connect with truthful remorse. So this card is emphasizing the knowledge, the information we have, and the story or the narrative that we weave about that information. And then she says it will connect us with truthful remorse. And so what this is telling me with Jupiter retrograding in Gemini, we might actually realize that we've been telling a story about something we did wrong. And Jupiter going back in Gemini, we might collect new information to see, actually, this was not my responsibility at all. I can liberate myself from that story of shame or guilt and realize that what my part or what my role truthfully was and really was is for me to own. But there are other things that are absolutely not mine to own that I have been taking on and carrying to my own detriment. So pay attention, take action, and uncage yourself from the prison of your own making. And I'm going to put the Eight of Swords, which is Jupiter and Gemini, back on the screen just so you can see how this tarot card speaks to exactly that. Now, the other intuitive hits that I was getting have to do with the idea of uncaging as being that sense of expansion, right? And so there's some opportunity to break beyond the boundaries that we've already had. That's the expansive quality that's coming through that Jupiter offers in this situation, is that it takes us beyond the limitations that we had placed on ourselves, the beautiful uncaging. And I'm getting that there's something painful in that. And so when we get the new insight, when we get the new knowledge, when we're able to liberate ourselves from the false story or the false narrative, it eases or heals something that was very uncomfortable, if not downright painful. It might heal or ease some kind of suffering that we had been burdened by, and we are released to grow and expand our existence and our beliefs far beyond that, okay? Also, what I'm noticing in the moment is the orange and the reds. So this is a very active energy. This is very much rooted in the root chakra and the solar plexus chakra and those lower chakras, okay? And what I'm getting with that is this notion of shame, right? It could be actually rooted in things that are very ancient and very old for us. Things and narratives, beliefs that we've had or held on to or been burdened by since childhood, right? Our family legacies and family lineages and stories about who we are, what we're capable of. It goes really deep, right? It literally goes to the root of something. But it's also that place of passion and fire. It's the same source from which we can liberate ourselves, okay? And I'll let you look at it one more time here. And the card at the bottom of the deck, Smoke and Mirrors, number 42. Now, Smoke and Mirrors also deals a lot with false information, misinformation, not seeing things clearly, not understanding the full story, not having the real truth, right? And so maybe having some distorted information that obscures the deeper truth or the deeper wisdom behind what we're seeing. So I'm going to read from the guidebook for this bottom of the deck card as well. 42, Smoke and Mirrors, key concepts. Seeing through the lens of past conditioning, the inability to recognize the truth of what is being offered, healing from misguided perceptions, moving beyond the illusion of separation, being accountable for your biases in the way you view the world. So what's coming through with those key concepts is that Jupiter retrograding in Gemini might reveal to us how our own biases and our own conditioning distorted the way we saw facts, or distorted the way we saw and received and perceived information. So Jupiter retrograding in Gemini will give us the opportunity to recognize those distortions, recognize the way our preconceived notions, our prejudices, our biases colored the narrative or colored the data in a way that skewed the narrative in our favor, all right, or that skewed the narrative to our detriment, right? If we have a self-sabotaging conditioning or pattern there. All right, continuing from the guidebook. We're actually built to view the world inaccurately. Our five senses tell us we are separate from one another. We're conditioned to see time as linear. This creates a consciousness of delineation, separation, and finality. We have an innate fear that what we see is all there is. Although we know deep down there is more, we are suspicious of it. Our fear of death results from this kind of perception. The entire world is a construct of smoke and mirrors, and our job is to discover the truth that lies beyond this illusion. That feels like it's the crux of this Jupiter retrograde cycle. Discoveries at the frontiers of science align with what the ancients have known. At some level, we are all blinking lights in empty space. Consciousness is fundamental. Time can be bent, and we are eternal. Ask yourself if what you see is really just what you're looking for. What do you sense beyond your intellectual assessment of what is? Can you drop into your heart and soul and call for a vision, a feeling, an awareness of the true and authentic? Every day, remind yourself that you are intrinsically connected to all life. The universe needs you to learn about it. You have within you extraordinary magic with which to co-create life beyond your wildest expectations. Today, trust the inner voice that reminds you that you truly will find what you seek and more, even if outer conditions appear to challenge that. It's all smoke and mirrors. Things are not exactly as they seem. So the big takeaway I'm getting from this is that up until this point, we have been looking at a certain set of data or a certain set of information, a certain set of facts and insight, details, through a distorted lens, through an unhealed lens, through the lens of our trauma, through the lens of our past conditioning. And Jupiter retrograde is giving us a second chance, a second look, another opportunity to reconsider all of that information through new eyes, through a new set of lenses or a new paradigm. All right, now we are ready for the tarot. I am using the Michelle Knight Waite tarot deck. You can find a link to all the tarot decks I use below, as well as all the music that I use on my channel and all of the merch that you see me wearing, as well as mugs, shirts, other things that are available. Okay, what additional insight do we have for this collective Jupiter and Gemini retrograde cycle? What additional messages do you have for the collective regarding this larger Jupiter and Gemini retrograde cycle? We have the Lovers and the Ten of Swords to kick us off. The Lovers and the Ten of Swords. So both of these are Gemini energies. Both of these are Gemini cards. If you watched the portion where I shared the 3 tarot cards that are associated with Jupiter and Gemini, then you notice that the Lovers was one of them, because the Lovers is the major arcana representation of Gemini, and it has a lot to do with choices. It could deal with partnerships specifically, but choices in general that are aligned with a particular destiny that we have, are aligned with our unique timeline and vibration. Now, the Ten of Swords is also a Gemini card, and it means the ending of a very tough or difficult cycle. And specifically with it being Swords card, it's the end of a painful narrative, the end of a painful story, or it's the revelation of some information or insight or a mental clarity around something that has been painful, or the insight or awareness is painful in and of itself. So sometimes the Ten of Swords is tears, right? When you have been interacting in some way or engaging in some way and you realize it was all a lie, or you realize it just wasn't what you thought it was. And that's disappointment. It can be painful, but it's also closure. It's also closure that frees you up to move forward with the actual truth. Okay. Now, because these two came out together, this could represent the end of a connection or a relationship or a choice. We might see or become aware of a choice that we made, whether it's in partnership, our business, our home, finances, health, that actually wasn't based on real facts, that wasn't based on the full picture or the full narrative. That's really what I'm getting with that. And so this Jupiter retrograde cycle reveals where we were misinformed. But again, it's also ultimately liberating us to make a new choice, liberating us to make a different decision this time around. Okay, what more insight do you have for us? We have the Six of Swords, which is really nice to see. So that means that this Jupiter retrograde cycle is going to bring about some ease. It's going to bring relief. It's going to bring a sense of being able to acknowledge what was difficult, acknowledge what was painful, but finally being able to move past it, finally being able to move into a period of greater ease, greater peace, right? Greater contentment, and still taking the wisdom with us, still taking those lessons and that insight that we gained to make us better for the road ahead, for the journey ahead, while we actually leave that painful situation behind. We still take the lessons and the nuggets and the things that were valuable to us going forward. One, so that we don't make the same choices again next time. And also so that we, again, free ourselves from that sense of guilt or that sense of shame that past, or for some of us current situation, contained within it. And with the 6 and the 10, there's also a 4 of Swords present. And so this Jupiter retrograde energy, all retrogrades energy are very introspective. Again, that journaling energy, we might be able to take some time to rest and recuperate and recover from whatever this painful revelation or insight is with this 10 of Swords. And in that moment of rest, in that moment of sitting and reflecting, meditating on where we went wrong, right? Where we took a wrong step or took a wrong turn, helps us to move forward. It helps us to integrate the lesson and the wisdom that we can glean from that situation. All right. What more wants to come through regarding Jupiter retrograding in the sign of Gemini for the lovely collective of souls who are watching? Oh, 3 cards. Yep, there's that 4 of Swords. I mentioned the 4 of Swords was present because of the 10 and the 6. And so it came out on its own. And it came out with the 8 of Cups and the Sun. The 8 of Cups and the Sun. This is beautiful. I'll stop here because the message is very, very clear. We go through a very difficult period. We take time to rest, reflect, and recover from it. And we're able to move forward to a more peaceful, calm situation. And we're able to put it behind us both mentally and emotionally and embrace the luck, embrace the opportunity, embrace the abundance. That's what the Sun is representing. So yes, there are some sandpaper moments with this Jupiter retrograde, but Jupiter is always and ever the benefic planet, right? And so this Sun card being present reminds us that while Jupiter retrograde might reveal some insight, truth, some wisdom that's a hard pill to swallow at first, it is ultimately bringing us greater abundance, greater luck, greater joy and happiness going forward. But again, with this 4 of Swords and 8 of Cups, we have to be willing to do the work to rest, recover, to accept and integrate the lessons that Jupiter is providing for us in this moment. Specifically, Jupiter with the Mercury oppositions and trines. I think that communication, that information is going to be very important here for our healing, for our ability to make an informed choice, an informed decision. So there's some decision maybe that we made that wasn't the most informed decision, right? Wasn't the most informed approach. And so Jupiter retrograde is giving us the opportunity to recollect new information and new insights so that we're empowered with whatever choices we make going forward. I really like that. I will do a little bit of clarification here. See if we can get even more specific, although this is a general collective reading. So it can only be so specific for everyone. Okay. Any additional insights we have for the Lovers and the Ten of Swords regarding this Jupiter retrograde energy? Three of Cups. So this has to do with relationships for sure. So it's not just information or insights about choices. It specifically is speaking to relationships and connections with friends, neighbors, colleagues, groups, associations. You want to look at where Gemini is in your chart, where Sagittarius is in your chart, as well as Libra and Aquarius, okay? So this could be having understanding about a choice you made in a connection with someone. This could also be the reunion, right? The apology, the coming back together, right? So maybe you ended a friendship, maybe you ended a relationship based on false information. Maybe you thought someone had betrayed you, and then you realized that you were mistaken, you were misinformed, and that what you thought was a betrayal really wasn't at all what it seemed to be or what it appeared to be, right? And so that could be for some of you. And then for others of you, you trusted someone that actually wasn't trustworthy, you trusted someone as a friend or colleague that was withholding information from you, and now you see the full scope of their intention with this Jupiter retrograde. So again, it'll resonate for each of you differently, but just pay attention to, especially if there were any new relationships that started during that, July through October period, or any specific developments, any specific situations dealing with friends, relatives, colleagues. All of that stuff could be revisited, and you might see the story very differently. The story that you have about what happened might be revealed to be completely false or just not complete or inaccurate. Okay? What more do you have for this Six of Swords regarding the Jupiter retrograde period over the next 4 months? Tell us more about the Six of Swords energy. The Seven of Wands. So the Seven of Wands says that there's a push before the relief. So yes, you will experience relief, but it is going to require a little chutzpah from you, right? You're going to have to make an effort to create this peace. It's not just going to resolve itself on its own. Like, you will have to make choices to bring about this peace. You will have to make demands or put up boundaries or sort of just protect your space in order to experience this sense of relief with this Six of Swords, right? So it might be you deciding to move out of a roommate situation, right? So it's not that the situation just resolves itself magically on its own without you ever thinking about it. It's that you do what it takes. You do what it's necessary, right? You put forth a little bit of effort and you use your fire. Remember the fire energy here. So the Seven of Wands is a very fiery, assertive card. So you assert yourself in a way that allows you to move on and to get free of the burden and the trouble and struggle of whatever the specific scenario is for you. Okay, so keep that in mind. You do have to be active in creating this greater sense of peace for yourself. Now let's look at the Sun, the Eight of Cups, and the Four of Swords. The beautiful blessings and bounty at the end of all of this. What more can you tell us about the Sun, the Eight of Cups, and the Four of Swords? All right, so we have the Five of Pentacles with the Knave of Cups at the bottom of the deck. Five of Pentacles here. So this is the loss that was experienced. For some of you, it could be financial, especially with Mercury being involved. But this is you recovering from a loss, whether it was a loss in your health, a loss in your finances, a loss in your friendship. There was almost like a sacrifice that had to be made, a tough decision where you said, okay, I have to prioritize my health. I have to prioritize my mental health. I have to prioritize my financial stability. And when you make that decision for yourself, you receive the healing, you see why it was worth the sacrifice. You see why it was worth letting go or experiencing that perceived loss. Oh, for others of you, actually, what is clear to me now is that there was a perceived loss. So something that you thought was lost, something you thought was a sacrifice, something that you thought you didn't get might come around and say, actually, this wasn't lost at all. There was something better, or it was, you get another opportunity to pick this up, but you get even more for it than you originally bargained for, right? So there could have been like a perceived sense of lack. Others of you, because the Five of Pentacles is definitely a low self-esteem card for me, others of you, this is you recalibrating your inner story, your inner narrative about yourself, and leveling up your own sense of self-worth and the way you value yourself, the story, the narrative you have about what's possible for you, about who you are, about the journey of your life, okay? The Knave of Cups is at the bottom of the deck. 10 of Pentacles is beneath that. The Knave of Cups is that relief, that sort of emotional healing, and the card of looking at yourself through the lens, almost like with the purity of a child's eyes, right? So you're not attached with this Knave of Cups. You're not attached to the mistakes you've made, the wrong choices you've made. You are able to still recognize, or you're able to tap back into your humanity, like your divinity, your dignity, and knowing and understanding that you deserve compassion, that you're still a child of God, you're still a child of the universe, you're still loved by the cosmos, by your angels, your ancestors. No matter how many times you mess up, no matter how many wrong choices you make, God, the universe, the creator, the cosmos, the all loves you and always wants the best for you. And so you're able to tap back into that feeling, right? Of like, you too were a child, an innocent child, and your life doesn't become less valuable because you're now a 50-year-old adult. Your life is still as valuable 60 years later, 100 years later, as it was the day you were born. Regardless of the level of innocence you think you do or do not have, your life is every bit as valuable today as it was the day you were born. And this 10 of Pentacles is the exact opposite of the 5 of Pentacles, right? So we go from the 5 to the 10, and you are able to witness and observe the abundance. This is the second chance opportunity. So the first time around, we perceived it through the lens of lack. The first time around, we perceived it through the lens of our flaws, our so-called flaws, wrong choices, losses, guilt, grief. And the second time around, we get to witness it through the eyes of the divine, the eyes of the creator. And it says, nothing is impossible with us. We, the cosmos, the universe, is the most abundant thing that we could possibly conceive or not conceive of. And it comes out, and it turns out better the second time around. When we go back and we try again with greater insight, with greater information, armed with more data, with new perspectives, we realize it's even better, right? And sometimes what I'm really getting is that if it had worked out the first time around, we would not have cultivated the version of ourselves necessary to really benefit and reap the full potential and reward that was available. And so we lose it the first time around because the universe, our guardian angels, know that we need a little bit more internal work. We need a little bit more learning, a little bit more capacity building within ourselves to really be able to recognize and to leverage and to embrace and enjoy the blessing that is there to be had. With that, my dears, I hope that this expansive Jupiter retrograde Gemini video has helped you in some way to refill your spiritual cup, and I'll see you in another one.